You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
And a good afternoon, everybody. This is indeed the Michael K. Show. We thank you for joining us right here on January 6, 2025 on 880 AM. It is a pleasure to be with you. So many people have been wondering, well, how's the show going to be different? And we'll get into everything that's happening today. And I just want to give you a brief primer on how the show is going to be different. Well, Don and Peter are now still on in the afternoon. So essentially, the show has lost, and they could argue about this later on, the show has lost about 400 pounds. So I say that this show, the new Michael K. Show, is the old Michael K. Show on Ozempic, but without any of those nasty side effects. So that's the way we'll be rolling from now on. We'll have a good time. We're going to have great guests. We're going to have great features, all of that. And we are so excited to get the new show rolling. The first day of our new lineup. We are proud of it here at ESPN New York. There's ways to consume the show. You could get the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You could stream it, the whole deal, on the ESPN New York app, which is great. You just click on a button. You can listen to the show wherever you are on 880 AM or 101.9. No, don't listen to that. 101.1 on FM2 or HD2 on your FM dial. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Again, it's the old show on Ozempic without any of the nasty side effects. So we're going to start off today with the locals with football. So the regular season is over, and it was one of the worst seasons that you'll ever have in the history of either of these football teams. The Jets stunk and the Giants stunk. Now, the Jets fired their coach after 5 games. Now, Jeff Ulbrich has no chance to retain this job, so they're going to have a new coach as well. Now, the only question going into what is always called Black Monday is, would the Giants clean house and start all over again? And very early in the morning, it came out that no, they will not. That Joe Shane is going to return as a GM, and that Brian Daboll is going to return as the head coach. This is after one of the worst seasons that the Giants have ever had in their 100-year history. They've decided to stay the course. So they will retain the status quo. Now, I don't even have that big of a problem with it. I really don't, because I still believe that Brian Daboll is a pretty decent coach. I don't know what happened this year. I think it comes down to the quarterback play, but, he's got to take some responsibility for that. Don't you think? You got to take responsibility for that. He's the quarterback guru. He's supposedly the one that has his fingerprints all over Josh Allen, who might and should win the MVP in the NFL this year. So Daniel Jones was a complete flop. Couldn't get anything out of Drew Lock, couldn't get anything out of DeVito, and here we are. He's coming back. So here's my only problem with this decision by the Giants. It's a pretty big problem. You can't bring him back for 1 year to see how he does. If he has a bad year, you just blow it up. You've got to make a commitment that these guys are going to be around for another 3 years. If you are going to allow them to pick a quarterback, and the way it all flushed out yesterday, the Giants will have the 3rd pick in the draft. Now, unfortunately, the way most experts see it, there are 2 quarterbacks worth picking. And the 2 teams before the Giants in the draft, the Browns and the Titans, both need quarterbacks. So there might not be a quarterback that falls to the Giants. Maybe the Giants could trade up. I don't know. Maybe they don't even think there's anything worthy of a quarterback to stake your franchise on. The bottom line is this, everybody. You've got to tell Daboll, if you guys do get a quarterback, you got 3 years to develop him. Bringing him back for 1 year, if you draft a quarterback this year, what does that do? Then you start the Daniel Jones process all over again. All over again. So you're going to fire a coach after another bad year with a new quarterback, and then you're going to bring in another coach to inherit a quarterback. It makes no sense. That's why when you make a decision like this, the decision must be simply, we are keeping them, we believe in them, they are going to be here for a long, long time. So John Mara, who released a statement, I think it was about 10:30, something like that today, he spoke to the media at the Giants facility, and he talked about his decision to keep Shane and Daboll.
Shane and Brian Daboll Friday afternoon for several hours, after which I had a conversation with Steve Tisch, and we spoke some more over the weekend and just came to the decision that staying with both of them is the best course of action for us right now. I think in Brian's case, he was the coach of the year 2 years ago. That didn't disappear all of a sudden. I still believe he can do that again. And in Joe's case, I thought we had an outstanding draft class this year. I thought we had a really good free agency period, and I really like the staff that he's put together and built. And I think that they're the right two guys to lead us going forward. I understand, believe me, that that's not going to be the most popular decision in Giant land, but we believe it's the right decision for us going forward.
You know, Mara and Tisch actually painted themselves into a corner, getting rid of 3 coaches after 2 years for each one. So he doesn't want to look like the owner, or they don't want to look like the owners that have itchy trigger fingers. But this is a new world. I am not a big believer in getting rid of people right away, but look what Robert Kraft just did. His hand-picked guy, Gerard Mayo, he fires after 1 year. How is that fair? It wasn't fair to Steve Wilkes all those years ago. It's not fair to somebody to give them 1 year. So you fired the greatest coach in the history probably of sports. You replaced him with this guy who you just had to have, and then you pull the plug on him 1 year. So, I mean, Shane and Daboll have had 3 years. And again, I am not sitting here advocating that they should have gone. Not doing that at all. I'm not. But you better have a real commitment to them, not just 1 more year. No. It can't be just 1 more year. And the fans are frustrated, and Mara spoke about the frustration.
Nobody's more frustrated and upset than I am. I appreciate the fact that they have hung in there with us. I get your frustration. I feel your pain, but I still believe this is the right decision for us going forward.
Now, Mara was asked, is the commitment to Shane and Daboll for 2 years?
I understand the question, but I'm not going to put any kind of time limit on it, but I certainly understand where you're going with that.
It's a question that has to be answered. If you're doing this to bring them back for 1 year and they come back and they're 5-12 next year and you fire them, what did you just do? The only way that makes sense is that the Giants front office and the family, the Tisch and the Mara families, have looked at this draft and said, you know what, there isn't a young quarterback that's going to lead us to the promised land. So we'll bring in a bridge quarterback, whoever that may be. And if they can't get something out of that guy, then they're gone. So maybe they're looking at it, it's not going to be a case where we bring in a drafted quarterback to develop. We're going to bring in maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Sam Darnold. By the way, Sam Darnold wet the bed on national television. I wonder how much he undid everything that he did during the season. He was awful yesterday against the Lions. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if they bring in a veteran, or what is now so aptly called a bridge quarterback, and they go 6-11, well, then fire them. Then you could fire them, I guess. But if the plan is to draft a quarterback and develop them, you can't do it for 1 year. You can't. Doesn't make sense. And Mara was asked, how important is it to get a quarterback?
That's obviously the number one issue for us going into this offseason, is to find our quarterback of the future. Whether that be via the draft or acquiring a veteran, is going to be up to them to decide ultimately.
Now, Mara was also asked, why did the Giants go 3-14 this season?
Because we stunk this year, okay? The results on the field were not what we wanted them to be. There were a number of factors that went into that. A lot of that has already been discussed with the coach and with Joe, and will continue to be discussed. But I liked what I heard from them on Friday afternoon. I like what their plan is going forward, and we're going to stay with it.
So it took a conversation on Friday afternoon on what the plan is? They've been in the building for 3 years. You didn't know what the plan was? They've got to reestablish the plan? They have to re-articulate the plan? That doesn't make sense at all. Shouldn't the plan be a living, breathing organism that everybody is in on? Everybody is in on. So this whole Friday meeting, it's really intriguing to me. So Mara was then pressed on that. What did you and Daboll speak about on Friday?
I'm not going to go into all the details details.
But fans are going to want to hear something.
I understand that. Obviously, the quarterback is the big issue, and maybe he makes some other changes in the way he operates going forward. I've talked to him about, do you really believe that it's in our best interest for you to continue calling the plays? I said, I'm not going to demand that you do one thing or the other, but are you better off letting somebody else call the plays? And that's a discussion that we're going to continue to have. There are issues like that we have to have some further discussion about, but at the end of the day, he's got to make the decision on whether he does that, on whether he wants to make replacements in the staff. That's got to be his decision at the end of the day.
Will or are they both on the hot seat?
You guys are going to have him number one on the hot seat going forward. So no matter how I answer that question,
in your mind,
we're going to have to see. I'm going to have to be in a better mood this time next year than I am right now.
He keeps saying that. I like John Mara. He's a classy dude. We keep saying that. We better play important games in December. I hope I'm in a better mood. This was a historic season for the Giants, celebrating the start of their franchise in 1925. This is going to be special. And it's one of the worst seasons in the history of the franchise. I have to be in a better mood next year. Well, could you be in a worse mood than you are today? Finally, this is a good question. I'm intrigued to see what he said. Why didn't the team tank for the first pick?
If I had thought that we were tanking either one of those games, I would have fired everybody. We are never going to do that in this organization as long as I'm standing on this side of the grass.
I got to tell you this. I never think a team should tank, and I never think a team should tell players to tank. But if you're in the front office and you're a coach and you're a GM and you think there's a chance that you're all going to be back next year, isn't it better for the Giants to pick first and third? Now, you can't realistically expect any player to not play his best on the field. You can't. They can get hurt. They want to put something good on tape for other teams to look at. This is their life. I mean, the career lifespan of an NFL player is under 4 years. You're not going to give away a year so a team could draft a better player that you might not take advantage of. You might not be on that team. But you can't tell me, John Mara just said we would never do that. Listen, I'm not saying lay down and play dead, but a good coach, if a good coach can make you a winning team, a good coach could put the wrong players in the right places that you know you're going to lose the game. All right, so you won a big, big game 2 weeks ago. Well, what does it mean for you? Well, what did that do for the organization? If I knew they were tanking, they'd all be fired. So it's better that they won and dropped to the third spot, and let's say you love Shedeur Sanders. Let's just say you love him. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is worthy of the first pick in the draft. I don't. That's just my opinion. But let's say that the organization thought this is the guy that's going to give us 15 years of greatness. And they didn't discuss losing on purpose. That would be a fireable offense. Now, if Brian Daboll didn't know if he was coming back, he's got to coach well so people could think that he's still a viable coach. But if everybody's on the same page and they know they're coming back, you think it's absolute lunacy to sit back and think maybe it's best if we don't win these games? Just maybe. Now, you can't tell me that Brian Daboll was coaching yesterday's game to win. Why would you go on 4th and 7 from the 50? Why? And turn the ball over and automatically get scored on. Why would you do that? That's not good coaching. There's no way he would have coached like that. No way. Not even Dan Campbell would go for it on 4th and 7 from the 50 in the first quarter. Doesn't make sense. You punt the ball and you pin the Eagles back inside the 10. Instead, you go for it, you don't get it, and the Eagles rip through you. So there are ways to lose games without the ugly word of tanking. And for Mara to say, if I had heard that anybody would have done that, they would have been fired. That's folly. It's folly. It's absolute folly. Teams have tanked before. Now, we told you about the Mayo situation. Do you think that's a smart win last night or yesterday for the Patriots to beat the Bills? It's moronic. It's moronic. They would have the number 1 pick in the draft. And they lost. How does that do that? They lost it because they won. They lost it because they won. And then he fires Mayo anyway. Kraft does not come out looking good in this at all. At all. Goodness, some of these decisions, it just makes no sense. You win that game for what? For what? Maybe Gerard Mayo knew that he was going to get fired. He goes, I'm going to stick it to him, and I'm going to win, and then they're going to lose the first pick, and they did. Get real. Please, people, get real. I know my buddy Don LaGreca hates tanking. I don't like tanking either. But you can't say it's off the table. You can't say that teams haven't done it. I mean, they did it so often in the NBA, they instituted this stupid lottery system so that people can't tank because people were tanking. So it's not inconceivable that teams tank. Hey, the Houston Astros tanked for 4 years so that they got high draft picks. The Baltimore Orioles tanked for 4 years so that they could load up their farm system with high draft picks. It's done. It's not something that has a stink attached to it. Because it worked for both of those organizations. The Astros have won all those World Series. The Orioles have become a competitive team. Little secret, everybody. Tanking sometimes works. And most of your fans wanted the number one pick. Most of your fans were upset with the win last week. And then you play an Eagles team playing no one. They made McKee, by the way, look like, I don't know, let's say Peyton Manning. And you lose to them, but you couldn't lose the week before. All right, I'll play along. 1-800-919-3776. We have a big guest. First guest, I thought the first guest on the new iteration of the show has to be the best guest in all of radio. So I rung up Steve Young. I said, Steve, would you do me the honor of being the first guest on the show? He said, I would love to.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so we are going to have Steve on at 1:30. Quick little thing. So I park across the street here at our studios. And when I give the keys to the attendant, he always says, well, what time you coming? And I said today, again, like I've said for the last however many years, 6:30. And I walked away. I said, what an idiot. Now I've got to wait 3.5 hours to get my car. I've got to get in the habit of saying 3 o'clock. I'll pick my car up at 3 o'clock, but I said 6:30. So I'm getting used to this as well. A little odd, but I hope that you're all with us and with me, and then you stay around for the show from 3 to 7 with Alan and Don and Peter. But it is a freeing experience to do this alone. Not hearing Peter, shake the ice cubes in an iced tea. Not hearing Don make sounds that I just don't know where they come from. I love them both, and I'm going to miss them tremendously. But we're going to have a good time with these 2 hours. We really are, every single day. So let's get to you. 1-800-919-3776. We'll start with Dan in New Jersey. Dan, you're the first caller on the first show.
Michael, I'm so honored that you have chosen me to be the first caller on your first show. Happy New Year. How are you today?
I'm great, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Quick little note about the Yankees. I saw Passan mentioned a little trade from the Padres for Luis Arraez. What do you think about that?
I'm a little torn because, Arraez is special, but, he's been on 4 teams in 4 years, something like that, and he's won 2 batting titles. So he's not a great defender. So I think he'd be a good leadoff hitter for the Yankees. But then if you put him at second base, he's a worse defender than Gleyber Torres. And then you're going to keep Chisholm at third, and I think he'd be better at second. So there are some negatives to it, although you'd be picking up a leadoff hitter. And right now the Yankees technically really don't have a leadoff hitter.
That's very, very true. And then I want to get to my point about the Giants. I think John Merrick keeping these 2 around, I completely agree with you. It doesn't make sense to me. They were probably by talent-wise the worst team in the NFL this year. So if you're the worst team in the NFL, why would you keep your general manager that assembled the worst team in the NFL? And no defensive coordinator or coordinator is going to want to come here. I know Maher in his press conference mentioned a new defensive coordinator. Who's going to want to work with Daboll, especially considering all the stuff that happened with Wink and all the stuff that's happened with Kafka? The Giants are a disaster right now.
And also, Dan, think about this. Think about this. If these guys do not have a long-term commitment from the front office, you're not going to be able to get a great defensive coordinator. You're just not. So the whole Martindale thing blew up in their face. Then you bring in Bowen, and Bowen didn't do a good job. I'm sorry, he didn't. So they want to get rid of him, and they're going to have to bring in a new defensive coordinator. What kind of coordinator is going to come into a guy with essentially a 1-year contract? 1-year contract. Let's go to Chris and Bethpage. Chris.
Hey, Michael. I'm a longtime Giant fan, season ticket holder. I'm 61 years old. This, by far, was the worst thing I've ever seen. It was unwatchable football for most of the
Oh, it was
season.
awful. I agree.
Okay. Oh, awful. Now, I'm not as disappointed that they won that game last week, and I'll tell you why. Any other year, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward would be middle to late first-round picks. I think you're kind of reaching if you take either one of those guys.
I agree.
Everything I read and everything I've seen. I would love if they got the kid Travis Hunter from Colorado, because that's what we need, Michael. We need a secondary that can compete. I say this all the time, Michael, and I'm sick of it. When was the last time you saw the Giants defer the opening kickoff, the other team, and the Giants hold them to 3 and out? Giants get the punt, and they go downfield and score. It's never happened. The other team is always on. The defense was just as much a problem as the quarterbacking play this year. We need a secondary, and we have so many holes. The offensive line played better, but my point is this, Michael. I want Travis Hunter, and I would gladly take a guy like Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart later in the first round or early second round. Get a quarterback like Kirk Cousins to come over for a couple of years and develop that other quarterback. And I think you'll see that they're going to get 3 years. I think they are. I think deep down, Mara didn't want to talk about it, but these guys are going to get 3 years. That's going to be the game plan going forward. Your opinion?
Well, you know what? I don't love Milroe. I mean, Milroe has a pretty good arm, and he obviously can run, but his accuracy is terrible. So I don't love Milroe, the kid from Alabama. But if you want to take him in the third round or something like that, he probably wouldn't get past the second. But I also do see what you're saying. It's probably the best thing that they didn't get the first or second, because maybe they'd be forced to take one of these two guys, maybe. But a front office with conviction, though, doesn't take somebody they don't think is great. Because I keep hearing this one thing. If J.J. McCarthy was coming out of Michigan this year, he'd be the number one pick. By far. Over Ward and Sanders. So then you know that it's not a great quarterback class. Yeah, they've got a lot of holes. And I think the thing that saves Shane, Neighbors and Tracy, because it turned out to be not that bad of a draft. But, Joe Shane has done the impossible. Think about this, everybody. Joe Shane has done the impossible. He actually picked a player from Alabama who couldn't play. That's impossible. Evan Neal can't play. And he found the one Nick Saban guy that couldn't play. That's an art. That, my friend, is an art. So he's had some bad drafts, too. This draft, not that bad. But he's had some bad ones. And all the experts that me, Don, and Peter criticized when they said the Giants had no talent on their roster and would be one of the worst teams in football, we laughed at that. They've got plenty of talent. No, they don't. They don't have talent. They're terrible. So now you're going to fix this in 1 year? We shall see. Football Mondays on 880 ESPN, brought to you by Infinity. Experience the Infinity lineup at your tri-state retailer today. All right, when we come back, the greatest guest in the history of sports radio. I mean, what better way to start the show than with the greatest guest in the history of sports radio? That is Steve Young. This is the Michael K. Show right here on 880 ESPN.
This is a Football Monday, brought to you by Infinity. Experience the Infinity lineup at your tri-state retailer today.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/ESPNpod and use code ESPNpod.
Harry Douglas here. Say goodbye to bulky, clunky shavers that clutter your bathroom. Not only do you get an incredible shave, Panasonic's Palm Razor has a sleek, elegant design that adds a touch of sophistication to your bathroom. It also conveniently charges with a USB cord. Visit shop.panasonic.com/sports to shop for the Palm Razor. Use promo code HARRY for 10% off exclusively for ESPN radio listeners. That's shop.panasonic.com/sports, promo code HARRY.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Michael K. Show here on 880 ESPN. And as I said earlier, if you're going to have the first show, you want to have the best guest in the history of sports talk radio. And I, with trepidation, reached out to Steve Young, hoping that he would say yes, he would come on. And you know what? Because he's just the best guy in the world, he said, yes, of course I will come on. Here's the Super Bowl winning quarterback, the Hall of Famer, Steve Young, joining us now on the first new iteration of the Michael K. Show. Hello, Steve. How you doing?
Michael, it's great to hear you. I'm honored that you'd say, any doubt that I would jump on with you, man? I love it. You kidding me? And now you got your own show, and I'm ready. I'm excited to be here, and great to be able to say hi.
All right, so we've had so much talk over this whole year, Steve, about Aaron Rodgers. And, you look at the end numbers, and they look fine. I mean, they're some of the top numbers that any Jet quarterback has ever had. But if you watch it every day, he didn't seem like a dynamic quarterback. You're looking at it differently than us. How do you think Aaron Rodgers did this year?
Aaron Rodgers, because of the injury, is not as mobile and the age. And that's like, I think of myself and him in similar. He throws it better than I did, and I'm not trying to say we're the same. But I'm saying is like the mobility is a big part of our game, and when that mobility starts to go, and especially with the injury, it makes you have to change your game in a way that makes it not as dynamic, and so therefore you need more help. And if you don't get the help, you don't look as good. And I think that's the fundamental principle here. If you're not running the ball really well and try to push linebackers back, he used to be able to expand the game all over the field, break the pocket, throw down the field, run for, spit out 50, 60 yards, not even trying in running the football for big first downs, big touchdowns. And in today's game, that's a big part of it. But because of injury, because of age, he needs more help, and he's not getting it. And so I think that the idea that he learned the game in a more sophisticated era, which is before they changed the rules for safety, it changed the game so dramatically. He takes advantage of that. That's why Peyton wanted to play long. That's why Tom Brady wanted to stay forever, because they learned in a more sophisticated era. So despite all the emotions that people have about Aaron, he is capable. He just needs more help, and you have to decide whether you can get that to him or not.
Now, you can't put yourself in his head, but if you were Aaron Rodgers, would you come back? Now, the last game yesterday, he has 4 touchdowns, so if you're going to go out, that's a nice way to go out. But it seems like his ego, he probably wants to play.
There's a dynamic at the end of your career. It's emotional, and it's kind of like over my dead body. We're not doing this. We're not doing it this. Like, I'm not stepping away this way. And I think there's always going to be that part of it. Like maybe today you're like, I'm done. April, you can say that to yourself. Yeah, I think I'm done. But then June comes around and says, no, I'm not going out this way. So I suspect he will. This depends on what if the Jets don't want him to stay and he can't find a really good spot, then I think it gets decided for him, right? But if he can and gets a chance to go do it again, I suspect it. I look at myself and I just think in today's game where the flats are always open, the middle of the field is unpatrolled and no one can hit me, and they're going to pay me $50, $60 million, I think I'm going to give it another go.
It is interesting, though, because, we all thought, well, he's Aaron Rodgers, so he's going to be great again. And there's only one guy that's been great at this age, and that's Tom Brady. Why was Tom Brady able to defy the odds? I know that you have always talked about the protection that quarterbacks get and the rules, but Brady still had an unbelievable year the last year that he played, much better than Rodgers at the age of 41.
Yeah, and I think there's subtleties in it. I think that Tom, almost maniacal, right? I use the word and I kind of mean it, like a maniacal approach to preparation. And I'm not saying that Aaron's not prepared. I'm just saying that there's a way that he comes into the locker room and accountability. And I'm not even saying that Aaron's not doing that, but I'm saying that Tom has a unique infrastructure in how he approaches the game and how he attacks it. And I think that it brought out and then look, there was more help in Tampa. So I think there's probably a little bit of that too. So it's hard, but I can tell you, remember when Tampa went to the Super Bowl by about middle of October? You're like, these guys are not going anywhere.
Right.
And then they rallied defensively, and they rallied, kind of in the red zone. And so those are the two things that the Jets just haven't done. And I think Aaron needs to own the season. It wouldn't be smart of him to say, "Oh, look, I didn't get the help I needed, and I'm ready to go." It's like, look, I didn't put. You have to own it as a quarterback if you want to really. And I think that's what Tom and Aaron have done their whole lives. I suspect he'll do the same.
Do you think he could get the mobility back, or once you get the Achilles injury and the age, that it's going to be less than it was?
No, I the opening day, and I know it would get better, but opening day when he was in San Francisco, I was at the game, and I felt for him because you could tell that it's just it's not what it was. Mm-hmm. And that was such a big part of that ability for him to go out. People don't realize he would spit out 50, 60 yards rushing without even thinking about it. If he needed to in a big game, he'd go 80 yards and make big first downs and touchdowns. When you lose that, and I never did, and so I don't know how to play without it, it would be really hard. And I think that adjustment's going to take, I think the whole season he was adjusting to the fact that he couldn't move the way that he had used to. Doesn't mean he can't be great. And you saw yesterday, he's got it in him. Mm-hmm. And now he's just got to figure out what's the calculus of who's around me, and then what's my attitude? Am I ready for it? Because that was a long season. I remember about, Thanksgiving, I'm like, there's nothing more difficult. People say baseball, when you're losing, it almost loses, you get numb and then it goes on. Football, because it's a baton death march, and it's just brutal when it gets like that. So that took a lot out of everyone in the New York Jets organization, and especially him.
Talking to the Hall of Famer Steve Young. Now, Steve, the big news in New York today is that the Giants are deciding to stay with what they have with Shane and Daboll. Was that the right move?
Look, I know I got to be quick here, so I'll try to cut it down. But the game changed about 8 years ago, and the people who saw it and recognized that the field, essentially, because people can't launch their bodies into defenders can't launch their bodies, they can't patrol as much space, and the field got bigger. It was kind of Canadian League now, right? It got, by effect, the field got less patrolled, and so it was essentially bigger. And so the people who saw it, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, immediately went about concocting offenses that put defenses in distress. And you've seen over the last 7 or 8 years who has thrived offensively. And now you see a next generation, people who spit out of those organizations that say, oh, and by the way, all 4 of those guys were the kind of people that gave it away to their assistants, and they ran out and were able to be successful. And you're seeing that all over the league today, the next generation thriving as they find ways to attack in the new, kind of what I call is the new truth. Yet I see a lot of places that don't do it and won't. And so, look, you can do what the Ravens have done for years. They're trying to change, where we're going to be a very sophisticated running game, and we're going to throw the ball to kind of support it, play action, and we'll win a lot of rank and file games. Fine. I think that's Daboll's first year. They did that. They made the transition and was very successful. It's just not how you're going to get the distance. And so if you make changes and recognize that what's happened in the league is not something, it's not a fad, it's the truth, and you got to get on board, then I think that's fine if they're there. But if they don't make the transition and they're just going to kind of, let's run the ball, let's be really, fundamental, and we'll win games, great defense, and we'll win some football games, yeah, you might. You might get to 8-9, 9-8, but you're not going to get the distance. And so that's the transition that needs to happen.
But can you do that, Steve, without a great quarterback? And Daniel Jones failed. And obviously, Drew Lock wasn't the answer. Neither was DeVito. Can you run that unless you have a great quarterback?
Michael, it goes hand in hand, right? You got to have the fundamental, philosophy, the superstructure, and then whoever fits in. Look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's running around the league playing in terrible places for quarterbacks and suffering and struggling. And then he all of a sudden he gets an enlightened, innovative mind who understands the position, understands the truth of today's game. And bam, he's going to, they're talking about him for the MVP, not after yesterday, of course, but that's the kind of season he's had, and that's who he can be. So you can't find the full measure of the quarterback until you get this right. And more teams are getting it right, and I think it's coming out of those 4 guys that started it, who recognized it immediately, who reinvent themselves, by the way, every year. 67-year-old Andy Reid reinvents himself. This off week, he's reinventing himself in a new innovative way off of the things that the defenses are doing now to answer the things he did last week or the week before. It's a mindset. And those are the guys that are – why are they winning Super Bowls with great quarterbacks? Because they have the superstructure to go do it.
All right, so the 2 quarterbacks that everybody's talking about that are out there, Sanders and Ward, I don't know how closely you're following the college game, Do any of them or either of them ring a bell for you?
Look, they call it the game today because it's less sophisticated. There's the flats are always, like I said, Tom Brady's, at this last season says, Steve, the flats are always open. The middle of the field's unpatrolled. No one hits me. It's amazing. It's an amazing time to play because it's more college-like. Mm-hmm. You watch the bowl games today and this week, the big championship games. You'll see the offenses that the most innovative minds are running in the pros. It's just there's better athletes, and so in that way, if a guy's successful in college, it's more possible. Mm-hmm. But they've got to land in one of these spots. Otherwise, it's hard to say because they ask so much. People aren't running teams in the way that I'm describing as kind of the new age. It's terrible and it's hard for anybody. So I neither of them seem to me to be, Andrew Luck or Justin Herbert or people coming out that I just like, oh my gosh, put that guy in the pros right now. But certainly capable and have the thing that you have to have. Big arms, that used to be the prototype. Big arm, sophisticated passer, that was the prototype, that was it. Now you have to have big legs. If you do not have the legs to go get the yards that are out there that are free and easy in the game today, you can't go to the Super Bowl. Look at the MVPs. Look at the Super Bowl champions. Look who's fighting for the championships. All guys that have big arms and big legs. And I think and so both of those do have that capability. So I guess that's the prototype at least.
We're talking with Steve Young here on the Michael K. Show. So, Steve, the playoffs are set. The byes go to the Chiefs and the Lions. Who do you like coming out? Who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl?
The Lions, I feel like they're going to get exposed in the 4 games that they, maybe they'll get all the way to the Super Bowl. They have a confidence game going right now like nobody else, like I've never seen before from Dan Campbell. I didn't know that that's how you could coach and really get away with it. But it's when you get everyone bought in, and it's such a. You saw that yesterday. That defense is not top, top 10, even top 15, and that'll get exposed at some point. And so that's why I'm not bullish, but I'm bullish on their offense and how they're doing it and the confidence game they got going. The Chiefs, until you have to have that guy, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. Now there's young guys, Jordan Love. You got to have, guys that can go fill it up with their legs and their arms. And those are guys that win Super Bowls. I said 3 years ago that Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes would trade for the next 10 years the Super Bowl. In the end of the day, no one can beat them. They can't. And whoever has to play each other twice, that's who's going to win the Super Bowl. And it was true until this year Joe missed the playoffs. But I think, if the fact that Patrick Mahomes only has to beat one of those guys one time, mm-hmm. I think the Chiefs are just going to be tough to beat because of it.
And if it's not the Lions coming out of the NFC, who do you like coming out?
I like the Lions. I'm just saying that let's all admit that they're not full strength.
Right.
And I think that their confidence game has carried them, and I think the playoffs expose that at some point. So I'm not against them. I'd love it. I would love to see the Lions, for all the pain and agony and the PTSD that every Lions fan has for the last 60 years, it would be amazing to see them go the distance. So I'm cheering for them.
Are you?
If not, I think the Packers and the Vikings and even the Eagles today with the running game and how they're doing it are all huge threats. Even the Commanders are threatening because of who's quarterbacking. Again, prototype, big arm, big legs, smart, sophisticated passer. Even though he's young, it gives you a chance to go the distance because you have that guy.
Can you win?
And, by the way, Michael, and they have the infrastructure. Cliff Kingsbury understands the new age game mm-hmm. and is calling plays and running innovative offense to be able to take advantage of it.
I mean, you had such a button-up coach in Walsh, and then you look at Dan Campbell, who to me looks like the diametric opposite of a brainiac coach. The guy goes on fourth and whatever all the time. Can you win in the playoffs playing that way?
I think it cost him a Super Bowl last year.
I agree.
Because he had the lead, and you cannot at some point. And I said it right after the game. You cannot be so dogmatic about your philosophy that you can't go, that it keeps you from winning. Now, it can be a reason why you win a lot of games, but there are moments when you're up 24-10 or 24-7, I can't remember where it was, and they were down in the field goal range, where you say to yourself, I understand who I am, I understand what I've told her, but I need to win this football game. And I just thought it was a terrible, terrible mistake that he made. And so, yes, they can go rank and file. They have dominated the rank and file games this season. But in this 4 playoff games, I think you've got to have the ability to not be as dogmatic and make sure that when you're in a game that's a little different, where a field goal really does matter, that you can't be foolish and not get your team to the Super Bowl when they should have been there.
All right, so I wanted to ask you this before we finish up, because Bill Belichick was on with McAfee, and he said something really fascinating last week. And I thought of you, and I said, I got to ask Steve this. He said that he and Tom Brady came to an agreement that I'd rather you use the timeouts. So the time, to me, is more important than the timeouts. Now, a lot of coaches don't think like that, and Belichick didn't either, but he trusted Brady. What was more important to you, Steve, having the timeouts or the time at the end of a game?
You have to have the time, because I can manage the time by the routes I run, by where the ball goes, and how how quickly. I mean, I really get into a jam when I only have 16 seconds. Then I only have one play,
right,
in bounds, right? So, like, I really understand what Tom was saying, and I agree. And what I appreciate is when they allow the quarterback to run it. In other words, we take the quarterback's lead. He runs clock management. Now, he gets help and ideas and people in his ear, but that's where things really get good, and where you don't have the miscommunication or the missteps that we've seen over the last few weeks, where coaches are waiting for a quarterback. Well, I'm not sure. Well, let's give him a chance. Seconds go by. Like, I think timeouts used earlier can save 15, 20 seconds, and that's another play. Right, and so in that way, that's what you need are plays. Mm-hmm. And so I love timeouts in my pocket, especially for a field goal. But I don't mind running a field goal unit on, having the field goal kicker not think about it too much and just kick it. I don't mind that at all. So I like what Tom's saying. I agree with it. And the more empowered a quarterback is to be a part of it, I think most quarterbacks today are out of the clock management, mm-hmm. which I think is a mistake. And I think that's where the disassociation comes from.
All right, one final thing. There's a lot of rumors in New York that Rex Ryan might get a second go at the Jets. Would that be a good move or a bad move for the Jets?
Rex is going to call me on this one. He used to call me when I used to look. Today's game. Dan Campbell's an exception. Bill Belichick's an exception. I get that. Today's game, the defense is under siege. Defenses are answering, and it's amazing what they're able to accomplish with rules going against them every year. I admire the athleticism of what defenses are doing, and great defensive minds are out there trying to fight. But the game today is so unbalanced for offense, and what's happening with so much space and the quarterback position, that the teams that have head coaches that understand the position, that understand offensive football, that understand what's at stake in the NFL today, that it is an offensive game, and the NFL is trying to make it even more so, are the teams that are thriving. There are exceptions, and I think Rex and I have had this conversation enough that I believe that Rex could be a head coach and step out of the way and allow offense to really thrive and do it. But my general sense, Michael, is I do not like in today's game a defensive-minded head coach because of what I just told you.
Steve, I owe you one for doing this. I appreciate you so much, and Happy New Year, my friend.
You can tell I don't get out enough, Michael. It's like therapy for me. Thank you, man.
I might bother you again during the playoffs.
I'm telling you, I'm on the couch right now. Call me up. I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right. See you, buddy.
That's the great Steve Young. Some interesting things that he had to say there, and it doesn't seem like he's a huge advocate for Rex getting the Jet job. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The number is 1-800-919-3776. It's the K Show right here on 880 ESPN New York.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Smith's for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Smith's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, the ESPN New York Survivor Pool concluded this weekend with one winner taking home the $2,000 prize. That's right. Congrats to Edward from Bushkill, Pennsylvania, for correctly picking all 22 picks through 18 weeks. That's pretty impressive. Ed outperformed all 5,116 other contestants to take the entire jackpot. It's all thanks to our friends at runyourpool.com. Hope you're enjoying the first show of the new Michael K. Show. 2 hours every day from 1 to 3. We expect you to join us here on 880 ESPN, and you can listen online, streaming, and obviously on the ESPN New York app, which is so easy. Download the app. It's free. Click on the tile, and boom, you are right there. So it looks like we're getting some traction with Rex Ryan, that maybe there is a chance that he could return as the Jet coach. When he was politicking for it, I didn't think there was any chance. But Rex is so smart. So I was watching NFL Countdown yesterday, and he was one of the few people on the panel that was saying that Robert Kraft has to fire Gerard Mayo. He said, I don't care if it's 1 year, if you don't do the job and the team doesn't look right, you got to get rid of him. I'm thinking, why is he so strong about this? You know, a coach calling for and the reason is, I think that Rex probably knew that the one guy he had to worry about the most with the Jet job, at this point, it could change, was Mike Vrabel. And if Mayo gets fired, in all likelihood, Vrabel gets hired by Kraft in New England. And that takes away an impediment for Rex Ryan possibly getting the job. And that's exactly what happened. And Vrabel is smarter than your average bear as well. That's why it became so public for him to do the interview before the season ended, just to scare the heck out of Robert Kraft. Because if you're scaring Robert Kraft, Kraft doesn't want to see Vrabel coaching the Jets and making them a viable franchise. He don't want to see that. So he gets rid of Mayo, and maybe he hires Vrabel, which is where Vrabel probably wants to go. The New England job right now is a better job than the Jet job. They got a quarterback in place. Drake May can play. So you got a quarterback in place. You got so much cap room. And you got another high draft pick. The only thing you'd rather be there than with the Jets. So Rex, by saying, I think they got to get rid of Mayo, not that Rex moved the needle, but Rex doesn't do anything without a reason behind it. And I think that was the reason. He's figuring if they get rid of Gerard Mayo, they're going to bring in Vrabel, and that takes away one of the blocks for me with the Jets. 1-800-919-3776. We'll go to Ira in Staten Island. Ira.
Hey, Michael, good afternoon. Good luck with the afternoon show,
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Same to you, my friend.
So you know, the Rex Ryan thing, he's smart as a whip boy. I tell you, he's playing his cards right. And I do believe right now he's the best alternative. Listen, you know, I think he learns from the second time around. I think Flores a shot, and you know what? I knew with Tannenbaum, you know, leading this search, that he's going to look at every possible candidate, GM and coach, and you've seen the list. I don't have to go over the names. And I think this is going to be a long process. And from reports I hear, Woody's going to Florida. He's going to meet with Woody, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chris is there. And I would expect him to get a second interview next week. And then I would think at some point by the end of January, once all these candidates interviewed, whoever else they have in mind, I think ultimately Rex does get the job. Flores, I don't know what you think about Flores. I just think I just don't see him working with Woody Johnson. I just don't see it. I was curious what you thought.
Well, I mean, I don't know how he would interact with Woody. I don't know how many coaches would, especially if he's going to be intrusive like he was with Robert Saleh. But I've got a question to ask you, Ira. You know, everybody remembers the first 2 years of Rex. The last 4 were bad. And then the 2 with Buffalo were bad. And he's been out of the game for so long as far as an active coach. What makes you think he could do it now?
Because I think that he has a chip on his shoulder. I think he learned from his mistakes. And I also believe that even though his record reflects that the last 4 years were not good, I think he was also handcuffed because they did put Idzik with him, so those last 2 years you could wipe out. And even though he went to 2 AFC title games, his best coaching job was in 13 when he went 8-8 with a rookie quarterback, Geno Smith, who Idzik forced him to play, and Rex, unfortunately, stuck Sanchez in that preseason game with the Giants, and he was out for the year. So they butted heads. So I think you got to kind of grade that with a curve. And real quickly with Rodgers, would you ever have imagined with the numbers that he put up that this team would have been 5-12?
That's a great point, Ira, and we thank you for the phone call. If you had given me those numbers at the beginning of the year, this is what Rodgers is going to be. I'd say the Jets are a 10-11 win team, at least. It's startling, the numbers he put up, but I would like to warn everybody, don't get seduced by those numbers that much. You watched him play. He didn't have a great year. He had 5 chances to win games on the last drive. He didn't. He just didn't have a great year. And he's such an otherworldly talent that even when he's not having a great year, he could put up numbers that, in the context of Jet history, actually look pretty good. But let's not be seduced into thinking that he had a good year. He didn't. He was part of the problem. The defense was terrible. The firing of Saleh was ridiculous. 2-3 and getting ready to play a game against the Bills for first place. And they got rid of him. We're going to talk about that and Woody's response to a question by Brian Costello, an exclusive interview in the New York Post that made my head spin. I just couldn't believe that he said what he said. We'll talk about that, so much more, as the K-Show rolls on till 3, right here on 880 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
This is the Michael K. Show podcast.
I gotta get more K.
Listen live weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN, the ESPN New York app, and your smart speaker.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. Michael K. on the Michael K. Show. Coming up at 3 o'clock, you've got Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. So you got to listen to that from 3 to 7. They've got Joe Namath on the show as well. So please tune in following this one. So Brian Costello, a good friend, works for the Post and covers the Jets. And he actually had an exclusive sit-down interview with Woody Johnson. And one of the things that jumped out at me that the owner of the Jets said was Brian asked him if he had any regrets firing Robert Saleh when the Jets were 2-3. And Woody Johnson said, I'm paraphrasing now, no, none at all, because of the things I knew at that point. That is idiotic. Buck Showalter once taught me something. He said, if a manager makes a decision that doesn't work out, and then he's asked, would you make that decision again? And he said, yeah, I'd make it over and over again. Then the manager's an idiot. He said, why would you make a decision that you know didn't work out? Isn't the whole point of a decision is that things are supposed to get better? So Woody Johnson has no regrets getting rid of Robert Saleh. Now, I'm not making Robert Saleh out to be Vince Lombardi and Bill Belichick. Not. But there's not a Jet fan out there right now, not one, and I dare you to call in and tell me, that thinks the Jets wouldn't be better if Robert Saleh had stayed in the coaching position through the end of the season. Because not only was Jeff Ulbrich absolutely overwhelmed as the head coach of the Jets, when you watch them on a play-by-play, game-by-game basis, didn't know what they were doing. They weren't coached. It's not that they were poorly coached. They weren't coached. So you're saying that you have no regrets that you got rid of Robert Saleh before a game where the Jets would have been playing for first place. What kind of management style is that, Woody? Or Ambassador Johnson, if you will? How? You have no regrets firing a guy, hiring a guy who was inept, but you have no regrets. Well, that means you're an obstinate, stubborn mule. Because if you can't admit that that was not the right decision, especially with the hindsight of knowing how it turned out, where your team absolutely hit the skids, then there's something wrong with you. And one other thing from that answer that he gave to Brian that really gave me pause. While knowing the things that I know, that was the right decision. Really? What do you know? What do you know? Well, was Robert Saleh a bad guy? Was there something going on behind the scenes that we should know about? Because by making that one parenthetical statement to Brian, you're casting aspersions on Robert Saleh. What did you know, Wood? What did you know? What was he doing behind the scenes that we don't know but you knew? That you felt he had to be fired? Doesn't that seem a little fishy to you? Now let's move on to Rex. He was on with DiPietro and Rothenberg, our great morning show. And he said something about Aaron Rodgers that I think backs up something that me and Peter and Don, or Don, Peter, and I did and said over and over and over again about Aaron Rodgers. This is Rex on our morning show telling you what he would do if Aaron Rodgers was his quarterback and he was a coach. Here's Rex.
If he's back, it ain't going to be the country club, show up whenever the hell you want to show up. That ain't going to happen. So I'll just leave it at that.
He also went on to say a guy coming back from an injury should not, would not, and never should have been allowed to skip mandatory minicamp. And I remember when the three of us used to bring it up. Oh, you guys are just Rodgers haters. What's the big deal? He attended all the other stuff, but he didn't attend the mandatory aspect. So if you're a little unsure about that, I'll give you time right now to look up the word mandatory. It means you kind of have to do it. And by opting out so you could go to Egypt on your long planned vacation, you spit in the face of the Jets. And I remember people said, well, if it doesn't work out, then we could revisit it. Didn't work out. We're revisiting it. Now, would they have had a better season if he was there? No, maybe not. But we'll never know. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. And I think that stinks. And I thought it stunk at the time. And Rex Ryan saying what he just said tells you that he thought it stunk too. And most people in football looked at that and go, how does the quarterback of the team, the leader of the team, skip mandatory minicamp and then expect everybody to follow him into the fire? I'm telling you, I bet he lost a lot of his teammates. And they all said publicly, no, that's cool. We believe he was here for... There's no way they were forced to be there, but he wasn't. That doesn't smell lousy to you? I still don't have a reason for that. But as we said earlier, you look at Rodgers' numbers, not too bad. Not too bad. Actually pretty good. But if you watch him every day, and Steve Young just told us this as well, he's not the same quarterback he used to be. Not as mobile. We're going to check in with our good buddy, Dan Orlovsky, right now. And he joins us over the phone. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Happy New Year to you and your family.
Awesome. You too, bud. Yes, sir.
What's your take on Rodgers? Do you think he is going to come back with whomever the Jet coach is going to be? And should he step away and go out on a 4-touchdown game?
I think he's going to play next year. If it's with the Jets or not, I still think is an unknown because who the coach is going to be obviously a massive part of that. I still think he's playing winning football. As he got healthier throughout the season, this last 8 weeks, he's actually played pretty well. And, this league, there's always teams looking for quarterbacks. And I think that there's going to be enough teams, whether, there's teams at the top of the draft that might need a quarterback in the future, a Tennessee or a Cleveland or a New Orleans that maybe doesn't get one in the draft. We'll see what happens in San Francisco. So, I think there's teams that are going to want good quarterback play, and this is not a great draft class. And whatever anybody thinks about him, he did play improved winning football the last 2 months.
Is it a big drop-off from great Aaron Rodgers to now, though, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be silly to say that it's not a big drop-off. That's why I'm saying winning football. 3 years ago, a guy was best player on the planet and with the MVP trophy. So, it's a fair drop-off, big drop-off, but I do think that if you keep him healthy and, have some of the necessary stuff around him, you can win football games with his play, no question.
Now, you talk about fair, and it just makes me think of what happened in New England. I just think it's awful, Dan, whether a guy did a good job or bad job, to give a guy 1 year to be a football coach. Do you think the Patriots made the right move with May or not?
You make the right move if you don't like the direction that it's going attached to your rookie quarterback and you think that there's someone out there that you like more, then it's the right move. It's not a fair business. You know what you signed up for when you sign it. So that's the reality. I think there were moments with Gerard this year that, post-game and the podium, you sit in there and go, is this really how we're conveying this message? The roster's not good, so the expectations had to be fair. I don't know if they were or not or relative, but that's not necessarily part of the league. But if you're sitting there going, hey, I watched what happened with Chicago this year, and you go, oh, man, do I really want to have this young quarterback and attach him to a coach that I was maybe so-so on and get halfway through maybe his first or second year and go, nope, don't look the direction. And then you go into the third season of Drake May going, all right, well, we got to start all over. And so if you feel like there's a better option out there for you and you want to make sure that you have a better supporting or surrounding group with that young quarterback, you do it. Whether it's a tough decision or not, you do it.
Do you believe Drake May is the real deal?
Yeah, I do. I really liked Drake coming out of college. I was just so concerned with him playing so early, with some of his mechanical flaws. And, he didn't play to start the season, but quickly got on the field. And it showed that he had really fixed some of his footwork issues that were a big deal. And he developed, with doing things in the NFL that he did not do in college. He did not get through with progressions in college because they didn't do them as part of their offense. He did it this year. He did not throw guys open in college that much because he didn't have to. It was our RPO-centric offense. He did it this year. And again, cleaning up his mechanics, he's a super talented young man. He's unbelievably athletic, great character and work ethic. And I think he really developed with some of the stuff that you wanted to see coming out of college.
All right, let's talk about what the Giants did or didn't do today. Was that the right move?
I'd agree. I agreed with the move. I think Brian Daboll's a good coach, and you're going to ask me, what do I have to say or prove to say that? I think you do look at the playoff year, and you got the best out of a player that is obviously a below-average talent. I think the team played hard for more often than not this season, where there's some issues at the end of the season for sure. I think that's part of that league at times. Unfortunately, I've been on teams that had good coaches, and when the writing's on the wall, pros sometimes start looking to the off season. I think also, just want to be honest, who else were they if they move on from a Brian Daboll? Who else are you going to go get? Who else are you actually going to go, hey, look how appealing this job is? Now, people may not like that, but if Ben Johnson more than likely wasn't coming to New York because he's going to have his choice of a Chicago or Jacksonville or New England. Mike Vrabel, how likely was it going to be that he's coming there? Aaron Glenn, how likely was it going to be that he is going to be the person to go there? So, you got to weigh, the candidates that are out there, and do you think that they're a better candidate than what you have? And, kind of believing in what they're capable of if you surround them with a better talent, specifically at the quarterback spot.
Now, here's my concern, though, Dan. Let me bounce this off you. I don't have a problem with them retaining them, but, John Mara said my patience is gone. Well, I mean, you can't retain them for 1 year if you draft a quarterback. That's not fair to the quarterback. So if you've got to almost make a commitment that they're going to be here for 3 more years. Do you see it that way?
I totally agree with your point. It's hard for me to answer that until April and until the free agency and draft period happens because, I agree with you. One, this is not a great draft class for the quarterbacks. I think Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are talented. I don't know if they're change your organization. Oh my gosh, we got Jaden Daniels. Flip things talented. Truthfully, I haven't dove into them to make a declaration either way. You're looking at Sam Darnold in free agency or trading for J.J. McCarthy. I know that's been floated out there. That gives me reservations because, then you're taking a young player and putting him in a brand new system. So it's really being a rookie all over again, also depleting your asset values when it comes to draft picks. So while that sounds amazing, it's not just a one-on-one trade. And so I think that you have to get the quarterback situation right. And before you really try to sit there and go, is Daboll, and Shane part of our long-term plans? And you and I both know, I don't care what anyone says about long-term plans. This league is year to year.
Now, you mentioned J.J. McCarthy. Now, before yesterday's game, Sam Darnold was amazing. He didn't have a good game yesterday. If you're the Vikings, do you stay with the cheaper alternative in J.J. McCarthy, or do you explore trading him and signing Darnold to a long-term deal?
Yeah, I really do believe that you've got to have the conversation of keeping Sam Darnold. What that value is, you just walked away from Kirk Cousins 10, 11 months ago because it got too expensive. Sam didn't play well last night. I think that was a little bit of attached to his offensive line getting absolutely destroyed by Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
It is fair also to say, let's see what he does on the road against the Rams. Can he rebound from that bad, quote-unquote, playoff environment performance is a fair thing to say. I think his season has been sensational, and it's hard for me to envision just letting him walk out of your building. But if he goes and lays an egg against the Rams that might make them think differently, keeping JJ and allowing Sam to walk.
Do you believe that if JJ was coming out like a lot of people are saying this year, he would be the first pick in the draft?
I think the first pick in the draft would be the kid from he can't come out, Jeremiah Smith.
Right.
Yeah, I would think that he would very much so be in that conversation. Tennessee at 1. Do they believe in Will Levis? I think it's hard to sit there and say yes. Obviously Cleveland right up there as well as the Giants. So with Cleveland and the Giants, they're at 2 and 3. If J.J. McCarthy was coming out, J.J. McCarthy would be the first pick to, no question, one of those two organizations.
All right. Rex Ryan is rumored to, he said on our air earlier today that he definitely thinks he's going to get the Jet job. I know you work with him. What do you think? Would that be the right move for the Jets?
Yeah, I think it brings back the identity that's needed for that organization and style of ball that's needed.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting to see who we bring as his offensive coordinator, because I'm a believer that you got to have a scheme now that takes advantages of and creates advantages. It can't be just a retread, in my opinion. Someone that's going to bring an old school philosophy and a schematic approach. I do know this, after working basically every Monday for the last 3 years with him, he desperately craves the I want to be back in the fight coaching mindset. You're not getting a guy that just wants to do it just to do it. You're getting a guy that absolutely lives and breathes it. And if he gets a quarterback, I still believe he can coach.
Thank you for joining us, Dan. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, boss.
All right. That is Dan Orlovsky. Good stuff from him. Here's Rex Ryan on with the DiPietro and Rothenberg today. He was asked, do you think that you're going to be the head coach of the Jets?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely, I do. And the reason I think I'm going to get it is because I'm the best guy for it. And it ain't close.
He does not lack confidence, I'll tell you that. He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And all I would say is the first 2 years were great with Mancini's team. The next 4, not so good. Now, Ira brought up a good point that, there were 2 years with Idzik, too. Idzik wanted no part of Rex. And that's always the danger of hiring a GM and letting him inherit a coach. But he didn't do that great in Buffalo either. And now there's this long time that he's been out. Now he's been involved because of being at ESPN, but it's going to be interesting. But boy, is he confident. He's just amazing. Now, Brian Daboll is definitely going to be the Giant coach next year, and he talked today about returning.
Yeah, like I said, I've been in constant communication with ownership, heard this morning. Thankful for the opportunity. Got a lot of work to do. Obviously, 3-14, not good enough.
Do you anticipate any staff changes?
Yeah, haven't made any staff changes. I'll just say everything wasn't good enough. So, when you only win 3 games, there's a lot of things that need to be improved. And, again, it's only the day after the last game, so we'll get started on that process.
Are you considering staff changes? Are you considering it?
Look, we just got done with meeting with the players. I'll sit down with all the coaches, and we'll make the best decisions we can for the football team.
And finally, when we heard from Mara in the first hour of the show, he kind of intimated that, maybe it's not the best thing for Brian Daboll to be calling the plays and being the head coach. And Brian was asked, have you discussed not calling plays next year with Mara?
Yeah, I brought that up. I brought that up to him in the meeting. Again, there's no decision that's been made. Again, we'll sit back and take a look at everything and do what we need to do.
Now, it's a big workload, everybody. Let's be honest. But there are coaches that do it. Andy Reid does it. Sean McVay does it. A lot of coaches do it. So it can be done. It can be done. 1-800-919-3776. Let's check in with Tessa in West Caldwell. Tess.
Hey, Michael. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
So excited for you. Very excited. I was so excited calling. I think everything's going to go great. You're going to do great. Everybody's going to do great. So I'm excited to be a part of the family still. So I just wanted to say, I'm going to be really honest with you. Even though, that's not my team, I understand what everybody's saying about everything like with Rex and stuff like that, but I feel a little bit he's acting a little thirsty. And even though he's confident, I do feel like just like trying to be nice, Michael. It's a new year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just feel like he's acting like a little thirsty. Like, stop thirst trapping. Just calm down. If they want to bring you, they bring you. Because I feel like he's seeing what Dan Campbell is doing. And to be honest with you, Rex was very similar to that, and Rex was doing that first. So I feel like Rex wants to bring the OG back, but right now you don't have a quarterback. I don't even know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, but you don't have anything. So I feel like, what are you going to do? You don't have anybody. Like, all you can do is bolster up that defense. However, what are you going to do on offense? So to be honest with you, I would try to bring somebody else in there, but that's just it's just my opinion. I think Rex had his day, and that's why you haven't gotten a new job in so long, because I think you've had your day. But that's just my opinion on him. But I just wanted to make an opinion on the Giants. I'm going to be honest with you. I've said this before plenty of times to you, Dave, and Peter. I always liked Daboll, and I always felt like, he deserved a chance, but I thought there was a combination. So I felt like if Joe was going to get fired, so was Daboll. But I'm going to be honest with you, I've never really liked Joe Schoen. I think the only thing that saved his job, Michael, was his draft, was Drew Phillips, Newbin, Malik. I really feel like, because these rookies really, even Masso, our linebacker, I really feel like these rookies really played extremely well, especially to be just thrown into the, they were just thrown into the fire. I think they played well, but I don't like how he handles things. And like you said with the Evan Neal, like, are you kidding me with that? So in my opinion, I was a little upset about Joe Schoen still standing there, but I do understand their combo. But like you said, Michael, what are we doing going forward? Because I'm scared for the next 3 seasons. Like, I am nervous. Like, I don't even know if I can handle it. But I don't want any of these quarterbacks that's out in this draft. So now what are we going to do? Stay with Drew Lock? Like, no, I don't want to be locked up with him. Like, are we going to trade for J.J. McCarthy? But are you healthy, J.J.? Like, are you okay? Because he was looking like he was $150 wet with a wet T-shirt on when I see him on the sidelines yesterday. I'm like, who is that? Like,
you know what, Tess? I saw today that wasn't him. He was misidentified. The guy they showed was not J.J. McCarthy.
Thank God. I'm like, this guy looks like he's a senior in high school. Who is that? Mike, I was so nervous. So, okay, I feel a little bit better because I thought he was taller and looked more, I don't know, just looked more.
Yes.
So I'm just really nervous going forward. The defense, come on. It's like, it was so, I don't know. I don't like this guy. Like, but you're right, who would come in working on a Daboll? Like, is he a problem? So I am just really nervous going forward. I'm going to stand behind my team, but we can't, this is our year. 100 seasons. And look, does that 0-6 in the conference? We've never did that, Michael. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's not good.
It was just so many disasters. And it's like, Daboll, I understand, but keep it real sometimes. Like, some of this was on you. Your play calling sometime this season was trash. So it's just like, keep it real. I hate his little, perplexing answers. Like, come on, stop it. Keep it real. You need to be disgusted. You need to give us fans that listen. I understand people have mixed feelings about us coming back, but we're going to get the job. Do something. Give us something. Because right now, honestly, Michael, I'm very, very nervous. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. And I do not want to draft a quarterback. If we can maybe get JJ, cool. If not, I would like that linebacker from Penn State, or I would even like the Travis. but I don't want to get any of these because then we'll be locked in with them again. And another disaster like Daniel Jones. You know what I'm saying, Michael?
I hear you. Well, I want to thank you for hanging with me and, giving me a call.
Course.
And obviously the guys are next. Stay with them as well. But Happy New Year, my friend.
Of course. Love you guys.
All right,
Thank
love you back. Bye. 1-800-919-3776. When we come back, a new segment, something I dreamed up during the holiday. I think you're going to like it. And it kind of goes back to my newspaper days as well. So stick around. I know you're curious right now. What's Kay got up his sleeve? I got a watch, and I got this new segment. So stick around right here on 880 ESPN.
This is a Football Monday, brought to you by Infinity. Experience the Infinity lineup at your tri-state retailer today.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Harry Douglas here. Say goodbye to bulky, clunky shavers that clutter your bathroom. Not only do you get an incredible shave, Panasonic's Palm Razor has a sleek, elegant design that adds a touch of sophistication to your bathroom. It also conveniently charges with a USB cord. Visit shop.panasonic.com/sports to shop for the Palm Razor. Use promo code HARRY for 10% off exclusively for ESPN radio listeners. That's shop.panasonic.com/sports, promo code HARRY.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. This is Hit and Run.
Oh, yeah, hit and run, baby. This is what it is. So I come up with these things that might not be worth a segment, but they certainly are worth me giving my opinion on. And I've written some down during the holidays that I want to get to. One by one, and you could agree or disagree with them. Number one, how about the Dodgers? How about the Los Angeles Dodgers auctioning off the ball that Aaron Judge dropped in the fifth inning of Game 5? That's low class, man. What do you have to do that for? I mean, it's a play that's going to live in infamy anyway. You got to auction off the ball? Why? You won a championship. You want it fair and square. Now you have to make light of one of the greatest players in baseball, one of the greatest right-handed hitters in the history of baseball because he dropped the ball in center field, and you auction off the ball? Not a good look. Also not a good look. During the holidays, Sammy Sosa apologized for essentially, I guess, taking PEDs. And he did this because the Cubs ownership, the Ricketts family, insisted that the only way that there's going to be any kind of trail back to being involved with the Cubs, you have to apologize for what you did. Are you kidding me? What hypocrisy. Major League Baseball owners, they probably knew what was going on. Did anybody apologize? Bud Selig knew what was going on. He's in the Hall of Fame. Anybody make him apologize? That is so bad. And Sammy Sosa, obviously desperate to get back into the Cubs' graces, he actually capitulated and apologized. I would have given them a flip of the middle finger like you wouldn't believe. Awful announcing. It's a website, a follow on Twitter that has been kind to us over the years. Really has been. And Don, Peter, and I were kind of honored and stunned as well that during the holidays they put together a list of the best sports radio shows in the country. And they named our show as the best sports radio show in the entire United States in 2024.
Is that right?
That is right. How about going out on top? 2024, the best radio show in the world. I love it. Love it. So C.J. Stroud's teammate gets his leg destroyed in the game, Texans quarterback. And on television, they're showing him crying. And people actually on social media are mocking him because he's crying. What does this world come to? I thought it was a beautiful thing that he cared enough about his teammate to stand there in front of the whole world and cry. But now, actually showing emotions makes you weak. Love it. I just love it. I love what we've become as a world and as a human species. There's nothing anymore that's redeemable about anybody. College football selections, they were criticized terribly. And one of the things that I kept seeing, well, they didn't pick the best matchups. They should have picked the teams that were the best, even if they had 3 losses. Why? So one of the big things, why didn't Alabama get in? Well, Alabama actually didn't get into the college football playoff. And then in the bowl game that they played, they got their backsides handed to them. But here's my problem with that thinking. Are you going to pick the best matchups, the teams that you think are the best? So it doesn't matter if you lose 3 or 4 games? So that means that the 12 games during the regular season mean absolutely nothing? Lunacy. Imagine if you do that in other sports. So a team could be hurt in Major League Baseball. Let's just say the Yankees. Yankees are hurt. But by the end of the season, they've got 78 losses, but they're healthy now. You're going to make them in the playoffs, or did the regular season actually mean something? It's a grind, baby. You don't get to be in there because you're a big-name college team. You get to be in there what you do. You can't lose 3 games and easily get into the college football playoffs. I think it's a terrible, terrible argument. Pete Alonso. His market is drying up if it's not arid right now. So there are rumors out there that the Mets have offered him 3 years, $90 million. It has not been substantiated, but those are the rumors, and he turned it down. Now, Pete was offered 7 years, $158 during the season, or maybe it was during last season, and he turned it down because he's looking for bigger money. I think he got seduced by what Aaron Judge did. Friendly reminder to Pete, you ain't Aaron Judge. You're not half the player Aaron Judge is. You're a good player. You're not Aaron Judge. You're not him defensively. You're not him average-wise. You're just not him. So he fires his agent and hires Scott Boras. Now, Scott Boras obviously wants to get more than the 7 for $158. I don't think it's out there. I don't think the Mets should extend themselves one bit because he's a homegrown Met. What are you worth? What are you worth on the market? You wanted to test your value, and your value right now says there's no market for you. Yankees signed Paul Goldschmidt. Christian Walker signed. All of the first basemen that were out there, they've signed. So if Pete is holding out for a $200 million deal, which first basemen don't get, he's going to have a very, very lonely summer sitting at home watching games. And if I'm the Mets, I don't even think I'd go up to $30 million a year. 3 years at 90? He should jump at it. He should ask them, okay, give me an opt-out after the first year, I'll take that deal. And then if he hits 58 home runs, maybe there will be a bigger market for him. But he's a 30-year-old first baseman, and if he thinks he's going to get more money, it's not there. I feel sorry for him. I don't think the market is there. Next hit and run. This was an unbelievable thing. So we turned to 2025 on New Year's Eve. And once the clock or the calendar hit 2025, you know the Billy Joel song, Just the Way You Are? Do you know that the Billy Joel song, Just the Way You Are, when it was released, I believe it was 1977, is closer to the Depression than it is to the present day? What? Yeah. Pretty amazing, right? Pretty amazing. A couple of other things. I'll give you a movie review, something that you would like. If you have Netflix, watch Carry On. It's so good. It is so good. It's guilty pleasure stuff. And Jason Bateman plays an absolutely reprehensible character. You'll love it. Check it out. Gleyber Torres signs a 1-year deal with the Tigers. $15 million. Good for Gleyber. I'm sure he wanted more than that. But he was smart. Grab the money where it's being offered. But here's my problem. When I did the playoff series for ESPN, I did the Tigers against the Astros. And the one thing that surprised me about the Tigers is that how buttoned up they are. Everybody runs to first base like it's the last time they'll ever be running to first base. They run the bases very, very well. They're fundamentally sound. And they try to play as good a defense as they possibly can. So my question is, and I don't mean this as a knock on Glaber, because Glaber's a good offensive player. What do they see in Gleyber Torres that fits into the way they do business now? Glaber plays the game at a casual pace, and it frustrates a lot of people. I just don't see how it fits what the Detroit Tigers do. It's a very, very odd fit with the Tigers and Glaber. Karl Anthony Towns. He has been unbelievable. And I started to think that when Don, Peter, and I were doing the show, when the trade was made, people were just up in arms over the Knicks giving up Dante DiVincenzo in the deal. Have you changed your mind a little bit? You think that Karl Anthony Towns was worth swallowing hard and giving away a role player? Now, there's no argument about Julius Randle. Both of them are playing poorly with the Timberwolves. But to think that at the time you're getting a seismically great player in Karl Anthony Towns and you're worried about losing a role player who did a nice job for you last year, but that was going to stand between you getting Karl Anthony Towns? No, I don't think so. I like Saquon Barkley. Like him a lot. But during the holidays, when he cut a commercial for a company called Unisom, he kind of poked fun at John Mara. You know, Mara telling Joe Shane, I'm going to lose a lot of sleep if this guy has a big game or big year. Well, he obviously has had a big year. And I just wonder, why would Saquon do that? John Mara was very good to Saquon. And he was the guy that was saying, I want this guy to stay here, to Joe Shane. And Joe Shane didn't think it was worth the money. And you're going to take a shot at John Mara. Ironically enough, John Mara was asked about Saquon's commercial today when he was discussing retaining Shane and Daboll. Here's John Mara.
I called Saquon yesterday before the game and told him I was very upset with him based on our relationship of so many years. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The least you could have done was ask me to be in the commercial with you." I said, "I could have been tossing and turning and it would have been a great finish." I said, "There is an acting gene in our family. It's not just my nieces."
He's taking the high road. It was crappy what Saquon Barkley did. There's other ways to make money. You could have done that commercial without mocking a guy who was always in your corner. All right, it's time for me to defend myself. A lot of people on social media were ripping me because I bagged the end of the pick segment that we had on the show. And a couple of people, I've been promoting the show on social media. I'm not going to watch because you're a coward and you bagged out of the final weeks of the pick segment and the clown payoff and all that. So let me just make things clear. I didn't bag out of the pick segment. That was the decision of a pinhead suit. He wanted to end it. He wanted to end my connection to the afternoon show, which I understood. But I've got the receipts because Don, when it happened that day, ripped me on the show that I was a coward. Now, I didn't know if that was performative or if he really felt like that. So I called Donnie. And he goes, "No, it wasn't performative. I think it was really crappy that you did that." I said, "I didn't do that. I was told that I should not make picks, that they don't want me to make picks anymore." And he goes, "Really?" And then I sent him the text thread with me in the pinhead suit where he said, "I'm discontinuing the segment. I don't want you to make picks." So I might be a bad guy, but I'm not a coward. I would have made the picks. I would have gladly put on a clown suit if I lost. I wouldn't have lost anyway. Peter's going to lose. So Alan has kind of picked it up, but it was through no fault of my own. I did not say, "I'm not making picks anymore because I'm a coward." So please, everybody, get a hold of yourselves. Please get a hold of yourselves. That you would accuse me of doing something like that, hurtful. Another thing, on social media today, a lot of it. Oh, Kay's calling Don and Peter's friends, blah, blah, blah. and he bagged them for his own show. Do you people read? Do you hear what we're saying? Did you hear what at the end of the show, the holiday show? The reason I'm doing this is that I could spend more time at home with my kids during the winter months. I could be there when they get off the bus from school. Show's over at 3. Their bus gets home at 3:30. How about that? I could actually be a dad for the winter. Had nothing to do with wanting my own show. ESPN stepped up and made this work because I was ready to just walk away and say, that's it. It wasn't like I want this show and I want to leave Don and Peter. I love Don and Peter. Don and Peter belong in Afternoon Drive, and they're going to do a great job with Alan Hahn. But this was presented. Well, would you stay if we made the show earlier and shorter? Yeah, I would. So that's the deal. That's what happened. Not because I don't like them. I love them. They're two of my closest friends in the world, and I love Alan too. But I'm glad there's a great opportunity for Alan, and just take a look at the lineup that we have now on the station. DiPietro and Rothenberg, that's a great morning show. As good as anything that's on the air in the United States. Then you've got Carlin and Bart, or Bart and Carl. I think Bart gets top billing. Unbelievable show from 10 to 1. Then you got the new and improved Ozempic Michael K. show. Lost 400 pounds. And it's just me now. That's 1 to 3. And then 3 to 7, you got Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. I mean, you're not getting a better lineup in New York. You're just not. Promise you, you're not. So there was no, I want my own show. I'm an egomaniac. I want to be alone. No. Not at all. It is what it is. It's for quality of life. I'm getting up there in years. And a 4-hour show leading right into a Yankee game was going to destroy me. A 2-hour show where I have 4 hours off between the end of the show and a Yankee game might actually extend my life a little bit. Just saying. Which might be more important to me than making you think that I'm not a coward because I quit the pick segment or that I just wanted to get rid of Don and Peter. There you have it. The first hit and run. Hope you liked it. We'll sprinkle it in every now and then. 1-800-919-3776. Let's finish up with phone calls as we lead you into Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg. 1-800-919-3776. Anything you want to talk about that we've hit today, it's up for talking. Right here on The K Show, 880 ESPN.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Smith's for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Smith's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
He's been here a long time, and he's going to be here even longer.
Catch the show on demand whenever you want. Just subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's get through some phone calls till we lead you to the Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg vehicle. Peter just came in and gave me cookies from Magnolia Bakery. He said his agent sent us cookies. So his agent's very happy that I got out of the way, and now I'm not even on that show. So thank you, agent. I think it's Doogie Howser agent. His agent that looks like he's 11. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Cullum in the Bronx. Cullum.
What's going on? Good afternoon, Michael.
How you doing?
I love the new show. And the new lineup. So I got a question. I saw that there was a report, I believe it's from Jeff Passan.
Yep.
His name was attached to it, but I didn't see any tweets about it or anything. But reportedly that the Yankees were looking into Luis Horizon.
Yep.
I would say it quickly. I would absolutely love it. That is a moment I would be in full nude excitement if they got a guy like that, back-to-back 200-hit seasons. The guy can flat out slap that ball. What do you think on it, and what do you think is the possibility true? Do you see any validity to this?
Well, he also mentioned that they're exploring that, and they're exploring Gavin Lux with the Dodgers. And the Mariners are also interested in Lux. And I said this in the first hour column. Arise is a special hitter. Bat to ball, doesn't strike out. He's very, very good. Doesn't hit for power at all. And he's going to have to play somewhere. So he's won batting titles. He's been on 3 different teams in 4 years. So teams don't value him as much as they should. Now, the Yankees are missing a leadoff guy, unless you want to try Anthony Volpe again. And he could lead off for you. But there is a negative to it. I mean, we have to look at things through a realistic prism. He's not a good defender. He's a terrible defender. He's much, much below Gleyber Torres defensively. So he's going to have to play second base. Now, if he plays second base, that means that Jazz Chisholm is going to stay at third. Now, I think Jazz's better position is at second, although he did do very well metrically at third. He did. But it does present some problems. A team that, their defense hurt them in the World Series, and they wanted to get better, and they have. Bellinger is a plus defender. Goldschmidt is a plus defender historically. I think if you put Jason Dominguez in center field, he's a plus defender. A lot of things have gone well for them. But if you put Arise there, you get yourself a pretty good on-base guy in front of Judge and in front of Bellinger, but you are weakening the defense. That's something that they have to decide. Let's go to Bruce in Flushing. Bruce, what's up, my friend?
Hey, Mike, congratulations on a new time slot.
Thank you, man.
The Giants. They mentioned this on Greeny's show this morning, and I totally agree with it. What's the identity of this ball club? They can't run, they can't pass, and they can't defend. And you're rewarding the general manager for that? Plus the fact that, look at the guys who left. Barkley, McKinney, both have talent. Both are good character guys that kept their locker room together. Mm-hmm. So why are you rewarding him? The fact that John Mara doesn't want to get messy and go through the coaching staff or to go rehiring everybody, and the fact that it might look bad because he fired somebody. The bottom line is these guys didn't work. This team, I'm old enough to remember the old Giant teams in the 70s and the late 60s. Even though they had bad records, you knew you were in a game. They had tough defenses, the Brad Van Pelt, the Brian Kellys. So even though they may have had a losing record, they had a tough defense. You look at a game this year where people quit on the team, and you're rewarding this crew, the coaching and general manager, because of that. I'm sorry. You needed to get rid of everybody and begin anew.
Well, you know what? I think that they got hoisted on their own petard because they've been so scattershoot. 3 coaches, all of them getting 2 years or fewer, and they didn't want to do that. That's why, they didn't fire Daboll last year, and then they have a worse year this year. And I'm not saying they should have been fired, but there are things that he hasn't done well. He didn't develop Jones. He didn't do anything with Locke. And Shane had a decent draft this year, but his middle draft, the second year, terrible. And the first year, as I said earlier, he's one of the few general managers in the history of the world that was able to find a player that played for Nick Saban that can't play in the pros. Wasted a 7th pick in the first round on Evan Neal, who can't play. I mean, that's an art to do that. That is really an art to do that. But the Giants made their decision. Let's see how it plays out. This has been fun. All right, thank you for sharing the first day with me. We're going to be here for a long time, couple of years at least, maybe more, and I hope that you make that ride with us. We've had a blast. Every show is going to be new and different and quick because we only have 2 hours to say what we have to say. Hope you enjoyed it. In the words of Billy Joel, life is a series of hellos and goodbyes. I'm afraid it's time for goodbye again. Coming up, Don, Hahn, and Rosenberg right here on 880 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the Michael K. Show podcast.
You know what? Check yourself.
Hear more from Michael K. weekdays at 1 on 880 ESPN.
Suck it up and like it.
The ESPN New York app and your smart speakers.